FMV game number 2, Corpse Killer. I only just noticed that all of the FMV games I'm doing are horror based in some way, shape or form. This is another game that saw a release originally on the Sega CD, except it wasn't developed as a VHS game back in the 80s like Night Trap was, at least not as far as I'm aware. This was developed at the time for that time period of the mid 90s or early 90s, I suppose. This is another case where the only physical version is a limited run, so you'd have to pay a premium. I haven't checked to see if this one's on the European PlayStation Network, so that might be the same case as Night Trap, where your only option in certain areas of the world is to hunt down a physical copy. This footage is going to be in much higher quality than what people would have originally played on the CD-based systems back in the day. So I think based on the title, Corpse Killer, you can probably imagine what this game's going to involve. So let's get right into it. Welcome to a tropical island full of zombies. That second part I imagine you expected. You play as a US Marine who's been airdropped onto the island to stop Dr. Hellman, awesome name, and his zombie army that he has created.
Your notions of death are all backwards, Lieutenant. You're the one decaying and dying. My soldiers have been charged with the elemental power of nature.
There are two other primary characters that accompany you, but they are mostly annoying and heavily overacted.
You were totally hot.
Radical, dude, radical.
Though I must admit, I started to like them more and more as I went through the game. I guess I just got more into the horror B-movie feel of it, and it rubbed off on me. I now can't imagine these characters being any other way. When you get to the gameplay, it's essentially a light gun shooter. You move a crosshair along the screen, and you shoot the zombies. Now these guys will throw grenades, unidentifiable objects, and most impressively, themselves. It's both the most ridiculous looking thing in the world and the most awesome thing in the world. I mean, look at them, they just fly at you. And half of them hit me. What happens when they hit me? Do they just explode? They only do a little bit of damage, but you think a whole corpse shooting right into you would be a really painful experience. Flying zombies aside, there are a few bonuses you can shoot at to get extra health or ammo, but a vast majority of the items you can collect are done at the end of the levels. You can select either more ammo or more health. There's a few different weapons you can unlock throughout the game, which are useful on different zombies. Some of them require a bit more firepower, whereas others you just want to get rid of ASAP, before they fill up the screen and you don't stand a chance. There are these silhouette style zombies, and when you shoot them, every other zombie on the screen will die. So the right idea is to keep them until the last possible second before they're about to hit you, and then shoot them. So you maximise the number of zombies you're killing with each blow. Now luckily you can control the sensitivity of the controller on this, because moving the crosshair can be a tedious task. While the original release on Sega CD did support light guns, I don't think this one does in any way, shape or form. At least definitely doesn't support a light gun, because that's not relevant technology anymore. Look it up if you want to know why. But it would have been cool if it had some kind of motion control, like the PlayStation Move controllers you could use to aim. That would make this a way more forgiving experience, because it can get pretty tough at times. A lot of zombies appear on screen, and you just can't move the crosshair fast enough to shoot them all. Luckily, there doesn't seem to be a true game over. At no point have I had to start the game all over again. I just go back to the mission I left off on, so that's pretty cool. So I appreciate that, because you're going to die a few times at least on your first try. Now, there's also a map screen in the game where you can take a look at the island and select missions to play, which have a variation of rewards. Some of which are even story-based, so you can miss elements of the story if you don't do these missions. The thing that took me by surprise here, though, was in order to access this screen, I did it by complete accident. In one of the most annoying features of the game, if you press the circle button, you immediately abort the mission you're on, even if that's the main game. And that is how you can take yourself to the map screen so you can select what area you want to play. The problem is, you get no warning, no prompt comes up, no yes or no box. You press circle, you're going back, so you better not accidentally do it right at the end of a level or segment. So Corpse Killer is a lot less like an interactive movie than most other FMV games. It's more a basic shooting game with a B-movie playing in between. The zombies themselves look okay in the normal FMV footage. Don't get me wrong, they still look very B-movie, low budget, but compared to in-game, it's a huge step up. You've probably noticed by now that in-game, they look like some real cheap, basic Halloween costumes. I'm pretty sure I've seen some of these sold as Halloween costumes, like hippie costume number 2 and stuff like that. And then the actors have just had some basic makeup applied to them to make them look dead. So it's a bit of a shame we don't get a consistent quality of the zombies. Now, like Night Trap, we have a whole bunch of bonus features available for us. And geez, this puts Night Trap to shame. This puts every other game I've seen to shame. Look at it all. Now, when I saw all these different icons, I assumed that each one would probably be a 30-second clip or so, and then the artwork would just be artwork, and so on and so forth. But no, this is serious business here when it comes to behind-the-scenes footage. There's even special edition DVDs and Blu-rays that I own, which pride themselves on all their bonus features that don't have as much as this. There's a ton of interesting behind-the-scenes videos to unlock, which can range from a few minutes to nearly 20 minutes a piece. And when there's this many of them, it soon adds up fast. It might be a little bit overkill though. Like there's one 6 or 7 minute video which is just like test footage for miniatures. Now at first I thought that sounded kind of interesting. It sounded like the sort of thing I would enjoy watching, but it really is like actual test footage. No commentary, no information. It's just a bunch of different camera angles looking at the same little miniature scenes. So yeah, I mean some of this is unnecessary, but if you've got this footage available, then I guess you may as well release it somewhere, and why not in the game itself? And a vast majority of what I watched was actually quite interesting. How many other early 90s video games do you have such a vast amount of behind-the-scenes footage of? This is usually exclusive to movies, so I can appreciate that. This is almost a behind-the-scenes DVD with a game included. The amount of content here is absolutely incredible, and a pretty awesome reason to get a copy of the game, even if it's not the best shooter in the world. Just looking at the manual, it's full of behind-the-scenes artwork, footage, well not footage, pictures, stills. It would be interesting if we had footage in here. But it's cool as hell. There's a ton of it and it's all high quality. I love when you get something in the physical copy. I wonder if when they were developing this, they thought it was going to be some kind of big deal. Like, the amount of behind-the-scenes footage, I know I'm going on about it, but there's tons of it. Like they were preparing for documentaries to be made. Well, it took a quarter of a century, but I suppose we got there, and we've got all this cool footage to look at now, so I can't complain. Corpse Killer took things in a different direction and made a more action-based game using FMV footage as much as they could. It's an interesting take, but it does show the limitations of using full motion video. You've got all this effort, but the end result is actually quite a simple game, even for the time period. But if you're like me and you see the appeal in this weird little genre, it's definitely worth checking out. And it's just nice to see a game like this get a little bit of attention in the modern era. So next time, we're going to look at something that was actually developed recently. I'll see you then.